Imagine standing on a sprawling piece of farmland so massive, it feels like an entire kingdom dedicated just to raising pigs. The air hums with the steady whir of ventilation systems. And the sheer scale of it all, thousands upon thousands of animals under one high-tech roof. This isn't the old-fashioned family pig pen you might imagine from a childhood storybook. Instead, you see row upon row of automated feeders, temperature-controlled barns, and intricate monitoring systems that track every pig's movements. And this is just the beginning of a world that has stunned animal rights activists, driven intense environmental debates, and opened the door to countless rumors about what really goes on behind closed barn doors. The modern American pig farm is a colossal operation that many have praised for its efficiency, while others accuse it of putting profit before principles. At first glance, you see the promise of technology revolutionizing what used to be a very labor-intensive job. Closed barns that regulate temperature, automated feeding systems that distribute the perfect mix of grains and supplements, and even sensors that detect changes in a pig's health. But behind the scenes, there are whispered stories about questionable breeding practices, debates over the impact of constant antibiotic use, and concerns that huge lagoons of hog waste might be threatening the environment more than most realize. Before we dive into the controversies, let's step back and see how these farms came to dominate the landscape in the first place. In the past, raising pigs often meant small homesteads scattered across the countryside, with families scraping by on modest profits. Then came the rise of massive agribusiness corporations that introduced industrial-scale methods for everything from breeding to processing. Suddenly, raising thousands of pigs at once wasn't just possible, it became the norm for any farm hoping to stay afloat in a highly competitive market. Automation came to the rescue, allowing farmers to feed and water more animals with fewer hands and to keep each pig's environment closely monitored. But that wasn't the whole story. As farms got bigger and more efficient, the question of animal welfare took on new urgency. Many of these modern facilities keep pigs in specialized pens, each designed to handle a certain phase: breeding sows, piglet rearing, or finishing sections where pigs grow to their full weight before slaughter. According to some owners, these advanced housing setups are the best way to ensure animals receive consistent care and protection from disease. Critics, however, argue that the tight confinement and controlled lighting might increase stress on the animals, making them more susceptible to health issues and possibly affecting the quality of the pork itself. Accusations surfaced that certain farms took shortcuts, perhaps pushing stocking densities to extremes to maximize profits. These rumors, whether fully verified or not, have ignited passionate debates online, where videos showing cramped pigs have circulated, prompting calls for investigations. And that leads us to an even bigger concern: disease management on these enormous farms. Health outbreaks like foot-and-mouth disease or African swine fever can cripple an entire operation, leading to staggering financial losses and the devastating decision to cull thousands of pigs. To ward off such disasters, many American farms rely heavily on strict biosecurity measures. Employees shower in and out of barns, vehicles are disinfected before entering, and pigs often receive multiple rounds of vaccinations. It sounds like a good plan, right? Yet rumors persist that in some places, preventative measures go even further, with allegations of excessive antibiotic use fueling suspicions about antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria. Scientists and consumer groups have repeatedly warned that the overuse of medication might create a ticking time bomb, while farm owners retort that meticulous care and treatment are necessary to protect both animals and the public. It doesn't stop at antibiotics. Some claim that certain places have dabbled in growth-promoting additives to raise heftier pigs in less time. While it's true that numerous additives were once widespread in livestock feed, stricter regulations and consumer backlash have reduced many practices. Still, rumors swirl that corners are cut when nobody's looking, especially in operations desperate to maintain competitive pricing on the international stage. Some owners insist that every batch of feed is tested, but critics suspect that not all barns stick to the same rulebook. And if that isn't enough to fuel speculation, consider how these farms scale up to meet global demand. The United States stands among the top pork exporters worldwide, and with major markets like China and Mexico in play, the stakes are sky high. Failing to supply the volume or quality these markets expect can mean the difference between a profitable year and a financial meltdown. Meanwhile, as production intensifies, questions about environmental sustainability loom large. Imagine massive lagoons full of hog waste, vast pools that hold thousands of gallons of manure. Managed well, they can be turned into biogas or converted into fertilizer. But if disaster strikes, like a flood or a breach in the lagoon walls, local waterways risk contamination. It's not just theoretical. Documented incidents have spurred a wave of lawsuits, with local communities complaining about foul odors and potential health hazards. Environmental groups accuse some big operations of prioritizing profit over ecological responsibility, pointing to repeated violations of wastewater management rules. On top of that, these criticisms feed into concerns about climate change, as methane emissions from livestock remain a hotly contested topic. Still, American pig farms aren't all gloom and doom. Many have made genuine efforts to adopt greener solutions, like installing solar panels, investing in advanced waste management systems, and participating in recycling programs that transform manure into organic fertilizer. Some farmers go even further, participating in research programs that look into gene editing with the aim of creating more disease-resistant pigs that require fewer antibiotics. This has sparked another wave of moral and ethical debates. Does editing genes cross a line? Or is it simply the next step in an ongoing technological revolution? The questions stretch beyond the barn and into the realm of global ethics. As consumer demand for meat continues to rise and the planet's resources are increasingly strained. Of course, the conversation wouldn't be complete without mentioning the delicate dance between American pig farmers and international markets. China, for instance, has been both a lucrative partner and an unpredictable challenge. When African swine fever ravaged Chinese pig populations, the demand for imported pork spiked. Although this spelled potential profits for American producers, it also triggered rumors of under-the-table deals and frantic expansions to meet quotas. Farmers scrambled to put up new barns or retrofit existing spaces, and some worried that corners might be cut in the rush. Fueling those worries were tales of antibiotic stockpiling, plus the unstoppable churn of new hogs rolling in and out. Then global politics came into play, as tariffs and trade disputes threatened to upend everything, leaving farmers vulnerable to sudden shifts in pricing and market access. Another factor twisting the industry's path is the rise of organic and pasture-raised pork. A growing number of Americans are willing to pay a premium if they believe a pig lived a more natural life. Instead of crowded barns, these animals might enjoy open fields, or at the very least, larger pens with better enrichment. Antibiotics and chemical-laden feeds are off the table, or at least heavily restricted. This emerging niche has ballooned into a profitable corner of the market, with organic pork often fetching higher prices in specialty grocery stores. Yet skeptics point out that the label organic doesn't always guarantee a meaningful difference, suggesting that big companies sometimes find loopholes to meet the minimum standards while still operating in a near-industrial way. Revelations have surfaced about certain organic producers who allegedly bent the rules, leaving customers disillusioned and fueling calls for tighter regulations. At the same time, consumer attitudes about meat consumption as a whole are shifting. Some people have cut back on pork or switched to plant-based alternatives. This puts additional pressure on conventional farms to either adapt or risk losing their share of the market. In response, the industry invests heavily in marketing campaigns promoting pork's nutritional benefits, attempting to quell negative press about animal welfare or environment-related issues. Critics say these campaigns gloss over real problems, while supporters believe farmers are simply defending themselves against unfair stereotypes. Each side accuses the other of manipulating the story, and the back and forth can grow so heated that it's difficult to know where the truth lies. Then there's the question of hidden costs. High-tech farming doesn't come cheap. Setting up sophisticated feeding systems, climate controls, and data management software can run into millions of dollars. Even day-to-day operations like electricity for automated barn ventilation push costs ever higher. When feed prices spike or when energy bills soar, small farmers often buckle under the financial strain, leaving only the largest corporate-backed farms standing. This consolidates the industry further, raising fears of monopolies that could dictate prices and stifle innovation. Meanwhile, activists worry that massive corporations might have too much power, limiting transparency and lobbying against regulations that might help animals and the environment but cut into profits. Beyond technology, there are also whispered stories about labor practices. Industrial operations require a substantial workforce, and some critics claim that working conditions in these large barns aren't always what they should be. Though many employers take pride in strong safety programs and training initiatives, rumors persist about workers who face relentless pressure, dealing with thousands of animals daily in often grueling conditions. While it's not a universal reality, there have been documented cases of exploitation, with some employees, especially migrant workers, allegedly pushing through harsh conditions for the sake of a paycheck. Public concern about where food comes from only grows with each new revelation. Investigative journalists have ventured into some of these facilities, legally or otherwise, capturing images of questionable practices. Industry officials often respond by highlighting their own tours designed to show pristine barns, content pigs, and an orderly system that prioritizes care. Visitors may leave impressed by how clean and modern everything appears. Yet critics argue that what the public sees might be the best of the best, carefully curated to leave a positive impression. Some even suggest that behind the scenes of certain farms lies an uglier reality. Overworked staff, animals possibly treated like cogs in a money-making machine, and systemic shortcuts that rarely see the light of day. But even the harshest skeptics admit that not every farm is guilty of these extremes. Plenty of producers genuinely invest in higher welfare housing, better nutrition, and more sustainable waste systems. They monitor each pig's health carefully, paying close attention to diet formulations that include grains, vitamins, minerals, and in some instances, plant proteins. Animal byproducts are sometimes used as well, though that has stirred its own controversies, especially when it comes to how the public perceives the practice. Then there's the matter of vaccination. Farms regularly vaccinate against common pig ailments to keep animals healthy and reduce the need for routine antibiotics. It's a tightrope walk between maintaining a clean environment and crossing the line into what some see as potential over-medication. Oversight from government agencies is also part of this mix, adding yet another layer to the story. Multiple federal and state regulations demand thorough inspections, from feed composition to living conditions. This is supposed to protect both the pigs and the consumers who end up purchasing the meat. But critics are quick to point out that enforcement can vary. Inspectors might be stretched thin or face pushback from powerful industry lobbyists who have a stake in the status quo. When a serious outbreak happens, agencies typically step in with swift response measures like quarantines and forced culls, devastating individual farms and shaking confidence in the broader system. Amid all this, technology continues to push boundaries. Some farms incorporate data-driven systems that track not just the overall barn environment, but also the minute-by-minute activity of individual pigs. If a pig stops eating or shows signs of distress, automatic alerts might signal staff to check it out. Proponents say this ensures quick interventions and top-notch care, leading to less stress and better meat quality. Detractors say it simply optimizes the industrial model, allowing even more pigs to be crammed into a single facility. As the tension grows, so does the competition among farms, trying to be the first to harness the next big innovation that sets them apart. Artificial insemination techniques have also advanced rapidly, letting farmers selectively breed animals that gain weight faster, resist disease, and yield higher quality pork. While it's a triumph of modern science, the question remains, at what point do these methods cross into unnatural territory? One of the most sensitive topics is the environmental impact. It goes beyond manure lagoons and includes everything from energy consumption to carbon emissions. Many large-scale farms are turning to renewable energy sources like solar power. They're also installing systems that capture methane from pig waste and convert it into usable fuel. That's a boon for energy costs, not to mention a positive step for the environment. Yet, some environmental organizations argue it might not be enough to offset the sheer scale of raising millions of pigs each year, each one consuming feed and water while producing waste and greenhouse gases. State and local governments sometimes impose stricter rules, such as more robust lagoon liners or mandatory odor reduction technology. But there's ongoing friction about whether it's enforced vigorously enough. Exports drive further expansion. The US is a major pork supplier to countries around the world. Every region has its own stringent requirements concerning residue testing, traceability, and welfare. Meeting them often demands even stricter management on American farms, including detailed documentation of every pig from birth to slaughter. This can be a daunting bureaucratic burden, but for many producers, it's worth the effort. Not complying means missing out on major revenue streams. An incident that shakes consumer confidence, like a health scare or a viral video showing inhumane conditions, can jeopardize lucrative international contracts. In an industry that operates on razor-thin margins, losing an export market could be catastrophic. As a result, you'll find many companies touting the cleanliness and sophistication of their processing facilities. HACCP, Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points protocols, for example, have become a watchword in modern meat processing. Every step, from refrigeration temperatures to equipment sterilization, is closely monitored. When everything goes to plan, the pork that reaches supermarket shelves has gone through numerous safety checks. But accidents do happen, and consumer trust can be shattered by a single recall involving bacteria or chemical residues. The fix? More documentation, more tests, and more costs, eventually passed along to the shopper, who might balk at rising prices. This, again, leaves the door open for less than perfect actors who might skimp on some procedures if they think they won't be caught. Meanwhile, a quiet but significant movement within the industry focuses on forging better bonds with local communities. Gone are the days when farms could isolate themselves. Now, neighbors complain loudly if odors become too much or if they suspect water contamination. In response, some farms host open house days, invite school groups, and share data on their environmental practices. Their hope is that transparency will ease tensions and perhaps dispel suspicions. Yet there's another side to that coin. Operations that close ranks, wary of letting anyone see what happens inside. These remain prime targets for undercover investigations. On social media, dramatic footage can go viral in hours, damaging reputations that took decades to build. One controversy that keeps reappearing is the possibility of bridging the gap between old-fashioned, smaller-scale, sustainable pig farming and the massive industrial model. Is it feasible to raise pigs more humanely and with minimal environmental impact while still supplying enough pork at affordable prices? Small artisanal farms argue that it is, but they often charge significantly more. Industrial farms say they can feed more people at lower prices, but question whether the public is truly willing to pay double or triple for ethical pork. The debate flares whenever news stories cover alleged abuses or environmental mishaps, fueling the argument that big farms cause big problems. Then there's a more existential shift: alternative proteins. Plant-based or lab-grown meat companies keep popping up, promising products that taste like pork, but spare the lives of actual pigs. While not mainstream yet, these alternatives gain traction every time a scandal hits the conventional industry. Large pork producers watch these startups warily, some even investing in them to hedge bets. Because if consumer tastes change quickly, they don't want to be caught off guard. That means the future of American pig farming could look drastically different in just a few years, especially if lab-grown proteins become more cost-effective. So where does that leave the pigs themselves? Animal welfare groups claim that no matter how high-tech a facility may be, raising that many animals in confinement is inherently cruel. Others argue that with rigorous standards, it's possible to provide comfortable, healthy conditions for pigs at any scale. The dissonance between those viewpoints won't vanish overnight, and within the farming community, opinions differ too. Some older farmers mourn the loss of traditional methods and personal knowledge of each animal's quirks, while younger generations embrace data analysis, genetic research, and cutting-edge technology to run the farm more like a science lab than a classic barnyard. At the heart of it all is an industry that feeds millions, generates massive revenue, and influences trade policies worldwide. The average consumer rarely sees beyond the pink cuts of pork in a grocery store cooler or the neat rows of vacuum-sealed bacon. Understanding what happens before that final package appears can be both startling and enlightening. You realize how a single piece of legislation or a sudden outbreak can ripple across the entire supply chain, affecting not just the pigs and the farmers, but the environment, global markets, and everyday people's dinner plates. As we reach the end of this deep dive, the question becomes, where do we go from here? The American pig farming industry stands at a crossroads. grappling with animal welfare controversies, environmental challenges, advanced genetic technologies, and a marketplace increasingly obsessed with labels like organic and sustainable. It's a realm filled with success stories of responsible farmers who treat their animals with care and safeguard the environment, but also marked by allegations of harmful shortcuts. It's a landscape of mind-boggling innovation where automation and gene editing promise new levels of productivity, but also spark debates over ethics and the potential long-term consequences. Ultimately, each piece of pork we buy represents a sliver of this massive, swirling puzzle. Critics might say we should walk away from industrial farming altogether, while defenders maintain that modern methods can be both efficient and humane if managed properly. The solution might lie in a mix of regulations, consumer activism, scientific breakthroughs, and honest, transparent dialogue between farms and the public. But whether that balance is achievable remains an open question. If regulations tighten, some farms might fail while others adapt. If consumer demand shifts to alternative proteins or smaller-scale operations, the entire supply chain may face a seismic shift. The next time you see pork in the grocery store or glance at a diner menu, consider the carefully choreographed effort it took to get that meat there. Remember the ongoing debates about antibiotic use, the hush-hush rumors of questionable practices, the sophisticated technology that can track a single pig's heartbeat, and the controversies over waste disposal that might threaten local ecosystems. Reflect on the farmers trying to earn a living while juggling consumer expectations, global trade pressures, and environmental responsibilities. Because, in the end, America's pig farming industry isn't just about pigs. It's about us, our values, our fears, our drive for technological progress, and our hope that we can find a way to nourish millions without sacrificing ethics or the planet. And here's the final thought that might linger long after the video ends. If these colossal farms continue to expand, incorporating ever more advanced science and efficient processes, will the very nature of farming be redefined beyond recognition? Will the pursuit of perfection, tastier, cheaper, faster pork, come at a cost we're only beginning to understand? Or will innovative farmers rise to the challenge, finding ways to respect the land, care for the animals, and still turn a profit? Only time will tell which path becomes the industry's defining legacy. But one thing is certain, the stakes are high, the controversies are growing, and the next chapter of this story could be more shocking than anything we've seen so far.